It is wonderful to be here. It's always great to come and share time with you, and you know, it makes my heart run a little fast, not because I'm afraid by any means, because none of you, and this doesn't intimidate me, this is my family, you know, why would I be intimidated? But the energy that I feel that comes off of you comes through me, and the energy that I bring from the things that we're doing comes through me. So this is going to be exciting. What I'm going to do, wait, let's take a look-see here if this thing is going to work. Oh, there we go, it works. I never trust technology. It gets a little iffy at times. Even though you all know the NeoLife story, Jerry told how his component of the NeoLife story, and Jerry, I wanted you to know, whatever it was that motivated you to move to San Jose and caused our paths to cross was a blessing for me that day and every day since, and continues to be a blessing. So thank you very much, Jerry. So you all know about our company, right? You all know about the things that we've achieved, the big pieces of scientific evidence and research that shows that our products do things that other products simply can't do. And it's been validated by third-party organizations, not just us telling you these, but really preeminent third-party organizations, researchers, and so on, published in really preeminent peer-reviewed journals and things like that. So, you know, we've got a big story to tell. The story's so big sometimes that it's hard to actually know where to start to tell it. But I want to take a little different approach this year to this. Rather than going through the details and ending at those same sort of points that we usually end at, the pinnacle of the product and what it means, I want to tell you a little bit about the stories behind those stories. Tell you a little bit about how we got there, what we were doing, who was involved, what it meant. Tell you a little bit about the topography and the geography and the environment in which all of this happened. Okay, so really interesting story. And to get back, to start, I think we have to go back to the start of the company. We have to go back to 1958, okay? And because I'm sort of a science and technology guy, I thought we would employ some science and technology, okay? You guys, you remember Mr. Peabody and Sherman and Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine? Well, I contacted Mr. Peabody and I said, can you set the machine for 1958 so that we can go back and visit that time? Because I think you need to understand the origins of it in that regard, okay? So here's what we did. He set that up, and we're gonna go on a little trip, okay? I wanna take you back to 1958 and just get a look at how easy it was for Jerry and people like that to talk about health, okay? 1958, health in 1958. There's a lot of confusing messages in advertising in the media. You can see here that getting your children started on soda pop was an important thing to do, early on starter, and moms who were breastfeeding, a little beer was good for you and the child, okay? Sort of an interesting approach to health, but you know, okay, I'll buy that. Vitamins were becoming a big thing. There was a vitamin donut. It's a donut with one B vitamin in it. It's B1. The only reason it's in there is because that's the only B vitamin that doesn't taste like a tire. You can mask it in a donut. I'm sure the kids didn't like that. And you can see here that it says kids need energy too, so you should give them candy. Oh, wow, you know, really exciting message. There were other messages about kids as well. You know, kids should watch TV. TV is good for kids, right? And Dutch boys lead paint, it was a party. It was a wonderful thing, lead paint. A wonderful thing, lead paint. And everybody remembers the jingle, DDT is good for me, right? I think it was Old MacDonald. DDT is good for me, E-I-E-I-O. Anyway, so, you know, strange sort of environment to think about, I'm gonna start a health food company in the middle of this. Go on from there. Weight loss was a concern, weight management was a concern, and the new exciting discovery for weight management was sugar. I mean, look at this. Lose weight, eat some sugar, get that energy, eat some sugar, and the government had just given it a clear bill of health. The government had said sugar is good for you. Why not? But if that didn't work, if sugar didn't work for you, there were some alternatives. There was amphetamines like methadone and the like, and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were sort of a good weight loss secret, and everybody wanted their Wonder Sauna hot pants, right? If all else failed. These were endorsed and embraced by the AAU, right, the American Athletic Union, so you knew it had to be good. Also, this is 1958, right? So you have to, can you imagine if you know, all the things that you have today that are going for you in media all over the place? Some other things, you know, the tobacco industry was busy in those days. Tobacco industry did not shy from involving your children in their advertisement, and I'd like this one here where it says, "Born Gentle." The new Philip Morris shows mom holding the baby. You know, pretty strange, huh? And tobacco was thought to be probably a good and reasonable thing, so a lot of doctors were embracing tobacco, right? As you can see here, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Sort of strange when you think about it. You know, intuitively, I don't know how you ever get to the idea that introducing smoke to your lungs is going to be okay, but who knew? And celebrity endorsements of this terrible thing were also big. You can see here. By the way, this guy down here in the bottom left-hand corner, that's the future president of the United States, Ronald Reagan. And of course, that guy in the middle, you know, Santa Claus. If you were really good for Santa Claus, next to the cookies and milk, you left a couple of cigarettes for him. So this is a strange environment in which to try to launch a health food company, but nevertheless, here comes NeoLife, right? Into this mess comes NeoLife. So you know, there wasn't a whole bunch of people out there just waiting to jump on the bandwagon and get healthy. None of the messaging that was going on, even from the medical community and the like, was focused on that. Matter of fact, most of them would tell you, you know, those are just a bunch of health nuts. If you got to be nuts about something, why not be nuts about health? You know, it's a good thing. So here comes NeoLife into the scene, talking about health and nutrition and focusing on cells and things like that. You know, saying, well, you know, you need to take care of these things. You need to think about what you're doing. You need to pay attention. And for a small group of people, these health nuts I told you about, they got excited and got behind the company and started it and got it revved up. And those pictures of that little NeoLife party, and it looks much like the NeoLife parties today, right? Because this message rang with people the same way it rings with people today, that I want to take care of my health, and it can be an exciting and wonderful thing to do to share that with other people. So cellular nutrition. So let's move forward now. We're done with that trip for the moment. Let's talk about cellular nutrition today for a moment. Along the way, this idea of cellular nutrition grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. Today, cellular nutrition and membranes that are around cells have gone much further. We're working within membranes within membranes, the mitochondrial membrane, which is inside the cellular membrane, and looking at little events, the exchange of electrons in those membranes. That's the depth of the understanding of these things these days, and we're right in the middle of that. Cellular nutrition has become so important that these are just a few of the credible scientific journals out there that focus on this. These come out all the time, talking about how important cellular nutrition is, how important thinking about your cells and caring for your cells and dealing with those issues that confront our cells and then actually confront our health as well. So from that perspective of 1958, there was no evidence that they could point to about how important cellular nutrition was. Compared to today, you guys got it easy, right? You've got all of this sort of information. You've also got a market. Back then, there were only a few folks that were looking to do this, looking to get involved in dietary supplements. Now we know that essentially 3/4 of the adult population in this country, that would include North America, actively embrace the use of dietary supplements in their pursuit of health and wellness. Actively and aggressively do that. The market back then was tiny, back in 1958, and today, as you've heard Kendra speak of before, the market in this country is gigantic. But not only is it gigantic, the trend line, I like to look at trend lines, the trend lines for growth in this market say that it's going to continue at a pace of about overall 6 to 8% per year. How many would like to put some money in the bank and get 6 or 8% return year after year after year? I'd sell my house and put all that in there if I could get that sort of guarantee. So It's really a dynamic environment, a really big business, a really big marketplace, and it's this way here and around the world. But it almost didn't happen. It almost wasn't allowed to happen. Because back in the day, the Food and Drug Administration here thought that they needed to have full and complete control of dietary supplement, nutrients and things like that, and messaging that goes out about nutrients. So I have this sort of the FDA war. Okay. In about 1962, FDA decided, oh no, we got to get these guys under control. They're making claims that they can't make. You can't tell somebody you can make them healthier by watching their diet. You can't tell somebody that there are key nutrients that when they're absent, it compromises their health and vitality, and when they're present, it boosts it. You can't say that. So they fought it every step of the way, and for that period of time there, for 12 years, they fought it. But they didn't win, and the reason they didn't win is because NeoLife and a group of others that had the same belief in our industry got together and fought them. Fought them every step of the way, battled, went to Congress. Went to Congress, found champions, and ended assault number 1 in 1974 with the introduction of the Proxmire Amendment. Senator Bill Proxmire, who believed in what we believed in, but he also believed in the right to free speech and the right to information and right to people to participate in their own health, that we didn't need the FDA to tell us that any dietary supplement over 150% of the RDA needed to be sold in a pharmacy. Okay, he knew we didn't need that. That wasn't about that. These were not drugs. So Mr. Proxmire passed the Proxmire Amendment and stopped the FDA right there. But because they're the FDA and they have an unlimited budget, okay, and they have this focus that said, oh, no, we need this, we want to control this. They continued to battle, they continued to fight, and we continued to fight. We were involved in industry groups that got together and fought them. I can remember walking through the halls of Washington, D.C. myself, talking to staffers and representatives like that. And in 1992, again, to bring the FDA to a halt, we passed the Dietary Supplement Act. But it really didn't stop them. They started finding it, you know about the swamp, right? Just because it's lawful doesn't mean that they want to embrace it. Just because it's the right thing to do doesn't mean that they're going to let you do it, okay? It tends to be a bit of a moving target. So we continued to work, and then between 1992 and 1994, we found another champion, and that was Senator Orrin Hatch out of Utah, okay? And I spent quite a bit of time with Senator Hatch over the years, relative to how much time people spend with senators. And I found out a couple of things about him. He's a really nice man. He's a really strong believer in our industry, but he's not very good at poker. We spent a little time at a poker table in Las Vegas once, just passing time. But he's a brilliant guy. He's still around. He's still a champion of our industry. But with his help and the help of a couple of others in Congress that time, we passed this little law called the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, which is the act in which we are all operating our business today. The assault on our freedoms has not stopped. There's still people in those organizations working to keep us from getting there, but guess what? We're still working to fight them from doing that. So if you think about it, NeoLife has had a big imprint on the industry, right? Because of the wars we fought against FDA and others, with some help, certainly, back in the 1960s and 70s, you are all here today. And because of that, millions and billions of people here and around the world have been able to experience the benefits of dietary supplements and helping them in their pursuit of maximizing health and longevity and minimizing the risk of disease. So, big story, right? So now you know some product stories. I want to take you on some product stories here real quick, okay? You all know about carotenoid complex, right? You all know where we got to, how we got there, what it's about. But I'm going to tell you what happened that caused us to be able to arrive at this place. Okay, that first thing where it shows the NHANES, that's the National Health and Nutrition Evaluation Survey. That's when the US government, USDA, took it upon themselves to start talking to people about what do you eat and what's going on, and doing a lot of what we call epidemiologic research and finding out what happens in the population. And they began to analyze that data and find that, certain people who eat certain things have a much lower incidence of disease than other folks. And the reverse was true, that people who are missing these things in their diet seem to have a higher incidence of disease. To make a long story short, within that data, we were involved with the USDA at the time in those sorts of research. We were doing a lot of analysis in there. Coming out of that data, we were able to partition it down to what it is. Fruits and vegetables of color first were really highly associated with health promotion, where the absence of those were with disease promotion. So we got into that, and then we began to look at what it was. And we found that there are lipid-soluble ones and water-soluble ones. And the lipid-soluble ones were called carotenoids, and they were present in the carrots, tomatoes, spinach, red bell peppers, peaches, strawberries, and apricots that we're all supposed to consume all the time. Okay? So what we did then is we said, well, that's cool. If you need these things and you're not eating them, why don't we go get them? The industry went and said, 50 milligrams of synthetic beta-carotene, that's what you need. We never bought that deal because the evidence didn't say that. The evidence said people who eat diets that are rich in these foods that have these benefits are getting the benefits. So we went to those foods and got those bioactive components out and created these extracts, which that dish represents the oleoresin extract of everything that's in carotenoid complex. We then put it in a capsule and we fed it to people because you need to know what gets in the body, right? I mean, what's the point of giving somebody something and you can't validate that it's actually getting into their body? So we did a pretty simple human clinical trial where we took people, we gave them carotenoid complex, and we monitored their blood glucose, and wow, it actually gets in there. Not a surprise to us because we had done a lot of work, but a big thing for the academic industry because it had never been shown prior to that you can extract these bioactive substances from carrots and tomatoes and spinach and so on, put them in a capsule, deliver them to somebody, have them show up in their bloodstream as the bioactive forms of these nutrients. Never happened. So that got us published and then got us an invitation from the New York Academy of Sciences to this thing called Carotenoids in Human Health, which was a big study. In that study, we met some folks, came out of that, got our work published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, which got the attention of researchers from the United States Department of Agriculture, you go along there, who just got together with us and they took it to do some research for us, and over a period of years they did some clinical research. I won't go into the details how, you probably know those stories. That resulted in three things. First, evidence that they proved it was bioavailable, just like we did. Second, they showed that while the carotenoids were in their bloodstream, there was a reduction of oxidative events taking place on the bloodstream, in particular on the LDL cholesterol molecule. In a follow-up to that, they showed that when these carotenoids are in your body and they get over to your cells, they take up residence in your cells, and there was a reduction in the risk of oxidative events taking place on cell membranes, and it finally ended up with them producing research that showed that when you take these things, even for a small period of time, they can boost key markers of immune function when they did that clinically housed study. They went around the world talking about these things, going to scientific meetings. They presented all this in peer-reviewed journals that were published. And we're just sort of coming along for the ride. You can't really get into a position of having much influence over the US Department of Agriculture. But there's a lot of really bright researchers there. And when they understand the basis of your thinking and they get the intuitiveness of the idea, they come right along with you. And it was that process that resulted in carotenoid complex, okay? It's the first, most complete, only one I know of, totally human food chain derived, natural carotenoid supplement. 15 carotenoids identified in there. All of those play roles in your diet, individually and synergistically. No other product like it in the world. Here's another story. Another story, this one will go a little quicker. Back to N. Haynes again. You can see that I broke that little picture down into two things. The differentiation there is between the lipid-soluble group and the water-soluble group. Okay. SAB was doing a lot of research. As we were running around researching these compounds, we found that one of the limitations of science is that they weren't identify. There were no standards of identity. So when we would find bioactive things, say in oranges or plums or broccoli or something like that, we could say, well, they're there, but what are they? And how do you standardize for them? How do you make sure they're what they are so that you can do it over and over and over and over and over again? So we started this process. We were working with some folks at the University of Illinois at Urbana who introduced us to a fellow at Princeton, a Dr. Park. And Dr. Park was at the frontier of this, trying to identify these sort of nutrients. So Dr. Karugi, Scientific Advisory Board member Ariana Karugi, got together with Dr. Park. And they were talking and sort of conspiring, if you will, to figure out how to do this. And they ended up together at the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology meeting there, where Dr. Park ran into another fellow who had just been given a big grant from the National Institute of Health to evaluate the impact of certain things on cancer cells. In particular, they wanted to look at the effect of certain drugs like tamoxifen and so on and so forth compared to certain bioactive substances that are found in broccoli and the like. So we got a little invitation. Oh, look, would you guys like to bring your stuff and participate in this National Cancer Institute protocol, human breast cell culture clinical trial? And when Dr. Karugi came back and said, we have this opportunity, what do you think? I said, are you nuts? Right away. Actually, we took it to the board, and the board said, yes, of course, which is what they say most of the time when we come up with these sorts of, oh my gosh, look at this. So we went to the Southern Research Institute in Birmingham, Alabama. Again, we're in the sidelines now. This is not us manipulating or even being close to what's going on. This is us just on the sidelines watching. At the Southern Research Institute in Alabama, they proved two things. They proved that the bioactive substances in flavonoid complex, which was still a development product at the time, had the ability in a dose-response relationship in these cell culture studies now. This is you can't really induce cancer in living people and then try to treat it. It's an ethical issue, okay? But what NIH and people like that do is they have these cell cultures, and the one that we use this time is called the MCF7 human breast cell culture, and they can look at they know how to induce cancers in these cells by certain carcinogenic mechanisms, and then they can, by doing that, you have your control where you introduce this cancer, and then you have your things that you're testing. Anyway, to make a long story short, that they proved that in a cell culture environment, the bioactive components in flavonoid complex had an up to 90% inhibitory capability of blocking not only the formations of cancers in these cells, but the progression of them in the cell. They also, at the same time as another component of that, looked at the bioactive components of cruciferous plus and showed the same thing, that cruciferous plus had the ability in cell culture, again, on a dose-response relationship to dramatically lower. In this case, it was only 50% or so, but what the big news there in the study was, they also found that cruciferous, those active compounds in cruciferous plus, had the ability to upregulate or increase the potential activity of these, what we call the phase 2 enzymes. These are the natural enzyme systems that are inside your cells that your cells use to defend themselves, superoxide dismutase and quinone reductase. They've got these big words. But basically, it's your cell's own internal antioxidant protection system, and that the bioactives in in flavonoid, or cruciferous rather, can upregulate these things. So all this is going on. So that stuff gets presented and published in SAB again. It comes right along. Out of that, we're so deep into this now, people are coming to us, so we get this group together that are studying polyphenols, which is what's in flavonoid complex, and we become the founding sponsor of the PHENREG, right, the Plant Polyphenol Human Research Interest Group. At the time, it was a very small group, maybe only 8 or 10 folks came to our meeting, but we have been a consistent sponsor ever since. And matter of fact, at this past meeting, you'll see here NeoLife and the Blueberry folks and the USDA. We're the preeminent sponsors even today. This is the one that just occurred here in April. We had 3 people from the SAB back at this event because there's so much going on that we want to be involved. And that fellow you see in the picture is Dr. Julio Passanetti, who is recognized as the preeminent researcher in geriatric health. He works out of Mount Sinai. Particularly, his focus is on cognitive health. and really bright guy. So we still circulate in pretty lofty territory. I'll do one more of these, okay? Salmon Oil Plus. You all know the story of Salmon Oil Plus. You know, we way back in the brown label age, okay, we had this product, salmon oil. And while the rest of the industry was popping up with these crazy stuff, you know, the SAB said, well, that's crazy stuff. I mean, that's not how nature intended that you get your omega-3s. So we went out and became the first single species omega-3 supplement on the market. And salmon oil was a great product. And it was in the line for a long time, but we continued to do research, because when we looked, we knew there was more to the story than just the EPA and DHA that was being touted in most of the research. Out of that came our discovery that there are 8 omega-3 fatty acids involved in human nutrition, and there they are. I'm not going to take you through them. You can find the data elsewhere. But and all 8 of these play a very important roles, either individually or synergistically in your body. So it's like playing a song on a piano, right? Hard to play a song on a piano if 3 or 4 of the keys are missing. Okay? So you can play a song, maybe chopsticks, well, maybe not. Okay? Depends on which ones are missing. So, or you can make a chord, or maybe not. Depends on which one are missing. So in your body, it's the same way. You can't play the song of omega-3 metabolism if you don't have all of the keys on the omega-3 piano. It's the way. So when we began to look at this, we began to think, wow, this is really exciting. Let's develop a product. We developed Salmon Oil Plus. We went and did the same thing we usually do. We did a human clinical trial, prove it's bioavailable, and which took us into we got a lot of attention again. The Linus Pauling Institute gave us an invitation to come up and share our data, which Dr. Karugi did. That ended up coming around and getting published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, which brought us to the attention of a researcher at UC Berkeley named Karsten Doughnut, who had just moved out from Harvard to study omega-3 fatty acids, in particular, how they resolve inflammation, okay? Because that's critical to the healing process. So we dove into that, and he was able to take our product and prove that, you know, NeoLife Salmon Oil Plus has the ability to upregulate these things, increase dramatically these things called resolvins. It's a chemical in your body that resolves inflammation. More importantly, he was able to go on and show that that led to more complete healing. You all know the story, who put the heal in healthy? You all know that story? You need to go to the website, and we've been telling that story for years. Who put the heal in healthy? We put the heal in healthy. It's a long story, I'm not going to tell you, but it was an amazing discovery. It was so amazing that Dr. Doughnut ran around to this bioactive lipids and cancer, inflammation, and related diseases and started presenting that at the front of the room. We got so much attention that we actually co-sponsored a couple of these events for a couple of years. Coming out of that, he got together with Dr. Karugi and published some work in Translational Medicine, right? What you got right, Science and Translational Medicine. It's just what it sounds like. It's science at the leading edge and how it's being translated into medical applications. That work was the only human clinical trial work that was going on. A lot of this work was being done, and a lot of the work that's been done on omega-3s has been done in animal models. But, you know, we like these animals because these are the animals we're trying to help. So we did this clinical trial. That work made its way into the National Institute of Health to a lady named Emily Chu, who was the director there of a portion of the National Institute of Health, EYES, who looked at our research and some research that others were doing and ended up referencing our material in an article in the New England Journal of Medicine. She gave 3 references to scientific data. Ours was the only human data. All the rest of it was animal data. So, you know, you don't get to do this accidentally. This is not something you can just get up this morning and say, oh, I think I'll go work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and prove the world can be enhanced dramatically through a simple little product. Never happens. So the reason this happens is because we have been diligent, and over all of those years, this is just an example of some of the entities that we have worked with, that we have done research with, or have done research on our behalf, where this evidence has been published or presented. And this is not all of it, by the way. This is not all of it. There's much, much more. But it gives you an indication. I always like to tell people you can tell the quality of a company by the quality of the company it keeps. Okay, we keep some pretty serious company. We have in the past. We continue to do that today. And we're never going to stop. It's our modus operandi, they would say. It's how we do things. It's how we work. It's how we be. It's how we exist. So, and it continues. And I want you to know that it's alive and well. And with Kendra at the helm, we are opening up new horizons. Okay, we are broadening our view. Part of achieving those goals is to always make sure that you're bringing fresh minds and fresh outlooks and fresh vision and fresh understanding into the mix, something we do all the time. We are always looking for like minds and like voices, okay?